Welcome to the first of several episodes of Dark Aspects of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. That's 5 ofs too many, so we're not off to a great start here, but hey, it can only get better from here, right? If you're new to the channel, Dark Aspects is a series of analysis videos where I pick a game rated E for everyone from the breadth of Nintendo's library and report on any darker themes I can find within. Despite some who argue that a family-friendly game cannot have darker elements for some reason, I'm continuing to do this because I find it fun and fascinating to see how stories with these restrictions approach this type of subject matter. Not because I'm trying to argue that Zelda is actually super gritty and mature. That aside, I was actually pretty hesitant to cover this game for Dark Aspects at all. The game's predecessor, Breath of the Wild, was one I skipped because the open-air design clashed with how I conceptualized these videos. Take a Zelda like Ocarina of Time, for example. That game is fairly expansive, but compact enough where it's realistic to expect to see it all. I can plan to speak with every single NPC multiple times in between story segments to find easily missable moments like the Castletown guard who you can actually witness die on screen. However, with these modern Zeldas, I have to expect that I'm not going to be able to experience everything the developers put into them, and accept that I don't have time, or brain capacity, let's be honest, to learn this massive open world like the back of my hand. Not wanting to miss out on discussing a very cool game, however, I've decided that this can just be its own ongoing series with multiple episodes releasing periodically, until I run out of things to talk about. That way, I don't have to ruin my enjoyment of this game by rushing through it, and I can gradually get help from all of you in the comments if you happen to come across a dark aspect hiding underneath that rock instead of a Korok. So let's work together to build a comprehensive video catalog of every instance of a darker moment in this wacky adventure, using various wood pieces and also a flamethrower cobbled together in a hideous fashion, of course. With all that said, and because the game just came out, this won't be much of a deep dive like normal. You can think of it more as a big leap into a shallow pool of water that somehow negates all fall damage. There will be some spoilers, but I'll only be wading through the first several hours or so as an introduction. Nintendo presents The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom prefaces the opening cutscene in a classy, somewhat creepy way, with heartbeats synced to white text phasing in from a black background. Footsteps can be heard while the game loads and fades into Link and Zelda carefully descending a staircase leading into a series of underground tunnels beneath Hyrule Castle. A mysterious substance called gloom is mentioned by name, which is totally different and easily distinguishable from malice, and can be seen as a black miasma emanating from the ground below. According to the princess, anyone who comes into contact with the gloom drifting through these caverns falls ill, which checks out as we later see sickly victims of this malevolent matter, and can become affected ourselves, says Link. Not to worry, this stuff doesn't pour out of your TV screen. Later on, running through this gloom without any preventative measures infects Link with a poison that doesn't dispel until activating a light root, or consuming some sort of antidote blessed with the sunny attribute. Here though, the misty vapor coming up from the ground isn't enough to fully deter them from investigating the source of it, as the stuff apparently isn't concentrated enough to harm them yet, so the two adventurers press on, or at least Zelda does. I'm busy playing in the water. Let's just say I'm testing out the controls first. Look, Zelda's so used to this nonsense, she just silently waits for Link to be done. I guess she's not a fan of Limbo either. Now that the zoomies are out of Link's system, Zelda informs us that as a child she asked her father, King Rhoam, if there was anything she should know about below the castle. The man was admirably honest, but forbade her from asking any more questions, and especially exploring it, because simply discussing the matter was off limits, even to him. Some secret lies beneath their kingdom, but what exactly hides there is unknown and taboo to the royal family. It's a warning that's been passed down for as long as anyone could remember, which again tracks as Hyrule has a history of keeping well-guarded skeletons in the closet, like their bloody history of greed and hatred gathered in the Shadow Temple of Ocarina of Time, a place used by the Sheikah of that time to imprison, interrogate, and torture enemies of the royal family. The Master Sword then begins glowing blue to let us know that there are orcs nearby. That, or the mummified corpse of Ganondorf. Soon enough, Zelda discovers some carvings of an ancient civilization that was pretty indirectly introduced in Breath of the Wild. The Zonai, a race said to have lived long ago, in the time of earliest legend. They are said in Hyrule's history books to have possessed godlike powers and had established a prosperous civilization in the sky, but much is still unknown about them. Not surprisingly, because like I said earlier, Hyrule has something to hide and doesn't like its people to grasp the full picture. How did these ruins from an ancient civilization above the clouds, for example, find their resting place under the dirt? I still don't have an answer to that, I haven't gotten that far. But anyway, after an intense battle fending off 3 keys, which you can actually die to with diligence, and I'm full of it, baby, Zelda asks if Link is hurt, even though he's defeated Killer Guardians, Savage Lynels, and Dark Beast Ganon, the hatred incarnate 50 times his size. But when she realizes Link can just gobble up a few slabs of raw meat and be fine, Zelda fixes her gaze instead to giant murals on the wall depicting the Imprisoning War, which for some reason shares its name with a completely separate war in Zelda series history, where Ganon is similarly sealed by sages as depicted in the backstory of A Link to the Past. Zelda canon is already very confusing, so this sure doesn't help. This mural also tells the tale of how the Zonai descended from the heavens as gods and united with the Hylians of that time to establish the Kingdom of Hyrule. It is when an entity referred to as the Demon King stole an important artifact from this new kingdom that the great battle took place. And sadly the rest of it is obscured, so we can't see what happened next. You're telling me that Link really couldn't bring bombs down here? Look, Zelda, Ganondorf's grabbing my butt! And with that out of the way, the aforementioned gloom is getting heavier, and the music is increasingly becoming louder and more dissonant, as an erratic piano accompanies the distorted singing that sounds as if it had some sort of backmask effect applied to it. This foreboding buildup leads them to the deepest depths of the tunnels where the origin of this so-called gloom waits. Ganondorf's petrified corpse, kept in stasis by this glowing hand, and small treasures shown in the murals that belong to the first king of Hyrule, the Zonai known as Rauru. As they approach the gnarly body, the ethereal hand begins to creak and fall limp, as the hole in Ganondorf's chest where gloom perpetually pours out of is fully exposed and the intense sound of a heartbeat reveals that he's still technically alive. The undead remains start to snap, crackle, and pop as it suddenly rises with disjointed movements, then abruptly falls backward and looks straight into the camera as the neck twists, and two red glowing eyes awaken and massive tendrils of gloom erupt to try and grab Zelda. Link steps in front of her to counter this attack with the Master Sword, but the poison wraps around Link's right arm and consumes all of his earned stamina and heart containers from the previous adventure, like Samus being sapped of her abilities at the start of a new Metroid game. When the onslaught ceases, it looks as if his arm has been burned up to the shoulder, while the Master Sword's sacred blade is tainted with the stuff. Link desperately swings the already damaged sword to hit another incoming rush of gloom, which shatters the legendary Bane of Evil and only nicks Ganondorf's face, bubbling and healing itself almost instantaneously. In an amazingly raspy, dry voice, the enemy speaks and calls out this incarnation of his arch-rivals by name. Rather than answering Zelda's question, the conscious carcass rudely summons forth an explosive assault on the castle itself, raising the ground it sits on high up into the air as the ground they're all standing on crumbles away, and Ganondorf falls into the abyss that's created, taking Zelda along with him. Link just isn't very lucky today, as he tries to save his special friend by extending his newly charred arm, but fails to catch her in time and watches as she descends into the darkness, but her body curiously fades away into a ball of light. Knowing that Link doesn't have that kind of sacred power to protect him, the creepily floating, dismembered Zonai hand grabs hold of our hero and takes him to a better place, the Great Sky Island. Hyrule's denizens watch as yet another calamity befalls them. How long exactly has it been since the last one? My personal theory so far is that this game takes place 7 years after Breath of the Wild, which would nicely mirror the time jump in Ocarina of Time, but nevertheless, these poor people are no stranger to inexplicable cataclysmic happenings. The screen fades into a Shrine of Resurrection-esque cutscene, showing that the arm that saved Link is now a part of him. Fused on till Kingdom Come, likely so the developers had an excuse to give Link a sick tattoo sleeve. Rauru introduces himself and explains that the fusion was necessary to save Link, as his injuries would have gotten worse had the arm not been replaced. But on the upside, it allows him access to a number of Zonai powers even more useful than what was available to him via the Sheikah Slate. After failing to find a way to leave without taking the tarnished Master Sword, I had to try, Link must traverse the tutorial island and enter shrines filled with sacred light to receive their blessings to push back the corruption that stole away Link's life force, and to restore those abilities tied to the arm Rauru let him borrow. Like Ultra Hand, an homage to a Reach extender toy Nintendo manufactured in the late 60s. Upon gaining this and the powers to combine weapons and ascend through any ceiling, Link finds himself in a place where the essence of Zelda can be felt. Fi, the spirit of the Master Sword, yells at Link to send her through the Portal of Light, back in time where Zelda is apparently stuck. In the Dragon's Tear cutscene available upon first meeting up with Impa, we're shown that the point in time Zelda's been transported back to is when Rauru was alive, all the way back to when Hyrule's first king and queen ruled over the land. What you experience story-wise next is actually up to the player. Do you want to connect the threads of what's happening to Zelda right away, by tracking down the rest of these replacements to Breath of the Wild's memories ASAP? Or check in on the regional phenomena plaguing the 4 major locales of Hyrule, to solve their troubles akin to healing the 4 areas of Termina and Majora's Mask? What about the overwhelming number of side quests with subplots of their own, some of which reveal surprising things worth talking about for this show? The plan is to cover it all eventually, but like the spirit of the game, I'm actually going to leave what I immediately discuss next up to you, the viewers. What about the plot would you like to see follow this introduction video on dark aspects of Tears of the Kingdom? Please do let me know in the comments, but in this video's description I left a link to the official community post where you can vote on which order I'll cover these elements in future videos. Thank you all for watching this episode 0, as it were. I can't wait to know what you all choose. Bye for now, I'll hopefully see you somewhere down the timeline.
Brian and Susan, Jennifer, Kathleen, Dad Barry, Tori, Captain Harlock, and Janssen. Thank you.
How do you know our names?
Subscribe for more